Yes. Here's a disclaimer. The technical information contained herein is provided to SONA members and non-members. The sponsoring organizations and participants featured in this content strive but cannot guarantee to provide information which is current and accurate. Individual circumstances have a significant effect on how tax, financial, and government relief program information can be used. Due to this and to the nature of the information, it should not be relied upon for decision-making without professional advice. So we're going to be talking all things PPP loan, and we are joined by Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter Bridget Kelly, entertainment attorney Shay Lawson, and Adam Gorgoni from SONA. And we're going to talk all things PPP loan and answer some questions and, get to the bottom of it. I know myself, I've been considering doing a PPP loan. And so I can't wait to get all the info. Ooh, hold on. I'm going to start now then. Who's eligible for the PPP loan? Like, who can get it?
So the PPP loan is a loan offered by the government for paycheck replacement. So it's a business loan. It's for businesses. But the important thing in the context that we're talking about is if you're a self-employed person, even if you have a day job, but you make some money through your business as a songwriter or artist, whatever it is, producer, you are eligible for that, for a PPP loan and for that portion of your income. In other words, it's not, you don't have to only have that kind of income. You can have whatever it is. If you have a day job and you're waiting tables or whatever your gig is, you can replace the income that you made as your self-employment income with this loan. And it's really important to know that you don't have to have employees. You can be the only employee.
Is that what the mixed earner thing is?
Yes, that's exactly right. The mixed earner thing is people who, like so many people right now, have income from different sources. Maybe they have, they work in an office 2 days a week or 5 days a week, but you're a writer and you're getting some royalties, or you're a producer and you're producing, in your spare time, or you're half and half, whatever it is. That's a mixed earner. You're getting some money that's wages and you're getting some money that's business income.
When we're talking about mixed earners, this is speaking of the type of income that you are earning. You are earning a mixed income, not to be confused with the PPP, because I know the first question was about, well, what is PPP? And so when we're talking about mixed earners may qualify for the payroll protection program, or they may qualify for enhanced unemployment benefits depending on their particular situation. So I don't want people to say, oh, well, I'm a mixed earner, so I can only file for PPP, or I can only file for unemployment. You want to get with a professional. You want to look through the information and see which one of these makes the most sense for my situation.
It's not both. You can't do them both at the same time. If you make more money running your business than you do by wages, you probably want to look at, depending on how the numbers go, you probably want to look at a PPP loan. But if most of your income is from wages and you just make a little bit of money from your writing or your business, whatever it is, then you probably are going to turn out to be better off just collecting unemployment.
So you can't have unemployment and a PPP loan at the same time. So what if you have unemployment and you want to file for the PPP loan? Do you pause it? What are we supposed to do? Pausing your unemployment is a big one for applying for a PPP. Can we talk a little bit about the process of choosing which one is more beneficial? Is there a way we could break that down really simple?
The maximum amount of a PPP loan for a self-employed person without any employees is if you had $100,000 of gross income, meaning you earned $100,000. Maybe I'm not talking about all your business expenses, just gross income, how much came in. You can apply for that figure. And it's a calculation. You have to divide it by 12 months and you multiply it by 2.5. But the maximum amount that you can get in a PPP loan is $20,833. If you had $100,000 gross income as a self-employed person with no employees. So, that's a lot of money, but it's based on to replace, the money that you had earned. And if you did less, if you earned half of that, if you earned $50,000 gross income, then it would be whatever, 10,000 and a half or whatever that was.
So then it might be better sometimes to keep unemployment, because I know like my unemployment was, I got like, I want to say maybe like $12,000 or something like that. So like, depending on, I guess you just like really weigh your options to see what the best option is for you.
The thing that is going to be important here is understanding what your state rules and regulations are as it relates to unemployment, because the calculations by state are going to be different as far as the calendar weeks in which you qualify. And then the payroll protection counts as reportable income, which is why you can't collect it at the same time as unemployment unless your state explicitly says we're not counting payroll protection. So that's why it's just so important that you figure out what makes the most sense for you. Look at how much you grossed over the course of the year. Then see what your maximum loan amount will be. If your maximum loan amount does not equal the same amount that you would make over the same course of unemployment weeks that your state allows, that's how you're going to make the decision, or, you would allow yourself to make the decision on what makes the most sense for you. But you need to really do the calculations and double check with your state unemployment office and see how they do their calculations and their timing.
Yeah, because in New York, I think that the loophole here is you can collect it at the same time, but you can't apply for forgiveness from the loan. So you can collect unemployment if you qualify for the PPP and you get the loan, regardless of what the amount is. If you're collecting unemployment in addition to getting the loan, you can't apply to be forgiven for the loan later. You still have to pay it back. You can, obviously, I think the deferment is like a year, but you still have to begin to pay it back.
So what kind of information do we need to apply for this loan? Like what are the papers? What are our requirements? What do we need to get together?
So if you filed taxes, it'll be based on your Schedule C, which is the page on your tax return that talks about your gross income, your business income, and your business deductions. You're going to need that piece of paper for sure.
So when you're applying for this and you're saying, hey, what all should I get together? You want to have your basic business documentation together, your articles of organization. They're going to be looking for your EIN for your company. So that's your employer identification number. If you are operating as a sole proprietor, then that's going to be your social security number. You want to have basic things like your profit and loss, because what they are looking for are your gross revenues, right? And so those are the things that are going to tell you the applicable information that will be for your loan. As Adam mentioned, you'll need your Schedule C if you have filed your taxes. You'll need any kind of payroll reports. So these are things that you can work with an accountant or a tax professional to get if you haven't gotten them in order. But what's important to note, they'll be looking for a historical loss, and it needs to hit a threshold of at least 25% difference in the income that you made for a particular period in 2020, a quarter, versus that same quarter in 2019. And so you'll need to have that documentation in place to say, in 2019, I may have made $40,000, but now in 2020, I only made $15,000, so that you can say, okay, I hit this threshold to qualify for this portion of the program.
So basically, you need to be able to prove your loss of income.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it only has to be in one quarter. Like, it doesn't have to be the whole year. So if from, April to June, had a dip, and you can show them with bank statements or that, look, in 2019, I made this, 2020, I made less, 25% less, then you're good to go.
So
I also want to give a quick insider tip from people who have applied for these loans already. If you apply, when they ask you for your business name, if you do this and you don't have a bank account with your business name, like if you're Tiffany Red Songs and you get, but your bank account is Tiffany, you got to use that name. You got to use Tiffany as the name on the application. Because if they don't match, they're gonna flag it and you're gonna get rejected on that basis, and you'll just have to go through. I'm trying to save like a step. So whatever you think is like, if your bank account is Tiffany Red, but your DBA is My Songs, you got to put Tiffany Red on the application, not My Songs.
Yeah. So if you get money, then if you get the PPP into your personal account, do you just write checks then from your personal account to your business?
Yeah, it's okay. I think you're not going to. This is just a question of actually getting the loan.
Right. I just mean in terms of, it's very specific about how you spend it, right? So when I do my expenses, I try to use my personal card for things like groceries or, buying hair products and things like that. But my gym membership comes out of my business account. My paying managers, paying commission to my management comes out of my business account.
So you have a business account. Does the business account have the name of your business on it?
Yes, I have both. I have a checking account that's just my personal account, and then I have a checking account that has my business account on it.
Right. So in your case, you would want to apply and use your business bank account name. Because you have a business bank account. But if you didn't have a business bank account, if you just had a DBA, but all your transactions were going through under your own name in the bank, you would need to put in your name, not your business name.
Okay.
That's really good information, because I know there's plenty of people who just do business under just their social and just them. So that's really good information.
If I were you though, if I was one of those people and I got a loan and it went into my personal account and my loan was for $10,000, I would write a check. I would
open a business account.
Say like, this $10,000 is my business money. I'm not paying groceries with it,
Right.
Because you could just get into trouble later when you try to prove what you spent it on.
Yeah, and to that point, something else that you might want to check with your particular lender about where you are specifically applying for the loan is that if you operate a loan out like an S Corp and you only pay yourself through an owner's draw or like a corporate distribution, then that might disqualify you for the PPP because there is no payroll that is being run. And so you definitely want to talk to somebody. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who have shifted their LLCs to be S Corps. And so if that is what you have done, I would definitely talk to your accountant, talk to your lender where you're applying, and make sure that you still qualify for it.
That goes right into the next question. Where do we apply for PPP loans? Because I've seen it's been like, they're like different banks have PPP loans, right? It's not just one thing.
Yeah, you can apply for it. The SB, the Small Business Administration, SBA, they're the ones giving the loan, but you get it through a bank or through these kind of third party, they're not banks, but they're services that administrate these loans. And the truth is that another kind of insider tip, if you might be better off applying through some of these smaller websites, because bigger banks, first of all, you have to have an account with them to apply through them. And a lot of times they're looking for the bigger fish. They want to make a $5 million loan because their piece is going to be bigger.
I looked into it at Chase and the terms were not ideal.
Right. And so for our community, for the people that we're talking to, people, artists, you're better off applying through, and there's a bunch of them. There's Lendio, There's Cabbage. PayPal has a wing that handles this called Loan Builder. The SBA has a lender match service.
Oh,
So, that's sba.gov/funding-programs, loans, lender match. But you can get to it. They have a lender match thing, and they show you all the different places you can go.
that's awesome. I remember yesterday I was telling you PayPal is such a big one in the creative community, because a lot of people are using platforms like Sound Better now and BeatStars and all of these companies that you get paid your royalties and things like that. Even sounds.com, the Native Instruments platform, they all pay through PayPal. And so for those who already have a working relationship with your business with PayPal may be a really good place to start, because you already have built a rapport and they already know how much money it is that you were bringing in previously. So I'm saying that because that's probably where I'm going to go, because I've had quite a bit of PayPal income. And so that's definitely where I'm going to start. And good to know, because initially, I'm with Bank of America, and that was the first place I was going to go, like, oh, Bank of America. But it's like they're looking for the big fish, and I'm definitely a little guppy.
Yeah,
Nemo, not gonna find me at the bank. Nope.
Yeah, no. Me and Bridget, we have PayPal. Like, you ready?
Right. Right. It's true. And I would almost go as far as to check, like, I would be interested in seeing what I would be matched, what small company I would be matched with, because I just cleaned up my credit. So now I'm like, okay, if I apply, my credit is better. So if that plays a part too in,
Oh, that's a good question. Does credit have anything to do with it?
From my reading of the first drafting of this credit, they will not run your credit for this.
Oh,
this
okay.
is supposed to be easy access to businesses in times of need. So the decision should be based specifically on the paperwork that is submitted. So as long as you are submitting true, accurate, and correct reflections of your gross income, right now, this isn't your typical loan where it would be going through a credit approval. And as a matter of fact, that actually brings me to something that I wanted to bring up additionally that's changed the second time around that wasn't true the first time around. The first time around, if you had defaulted on a student loan, if you had a felony on your record, and if you were not a legal resident of the United States, you could not apply for this loan. And now that is no longer the case. I think that those are going to be, that's a whole new pool of people that will now qualify for this. And I know that's huge as it relates to like student loan defaults and things like that. So if you had a student loan default, just to run through it one more time, if you had a student loan default, if you were a legal non-resident, and if you had a felony criminal record, originally you could not qualify to apply for the PPP. And now that is not the case as long as the felony criminal record is not related to fraud.
That's lit. Let's
great.
go. Come on, eligibility. All right. When's the deadline? How long do we have left to apply for this lovely loan?
Good question. March 31st.
If you haven't filed taxes yet, is there a way around, like, I know I'm going through this crazy process right now of trying to get an apartment, and they're asking for tax returns for 2020 and I haven't filed yet, but I reached out to my accountant because they'll accept a CPA letter saying I intend to file, and I've submitted my expenses to him, and he knows that he has an idea of what my projected income is. Is there a way around applying if you haven't filed for taxes yet?
Yes, because you can use 2020 to 2019 taxes.
Okay, great.
It can be based on your 2019 information. And I believe you can use a draft Schedule C as well if you wanted to use 2020, if that turned out to be more advantageous to getting a bigger loan for some reason, then you can use a draft Schedule C.
Okay. Yeah, 2019, Tiff and I were on injured reserve.
We were helping each other, just like
Yeah.
you were limping, then I was limping, then it was rough.
A broken foot and a high ankle sprain for 3 months.
That foot was crazy.
I got run over by a Vespa. It was not good.
So what can we spend this money on? Like, what are the do's and don'ts here? Because we get the money and we be like,
can I get my hair done? Is that acceptable? Does that count? Because technically when I do expenses, that counts as a business expense. I gotta show up on a podcast.
Bridget, if it is a qualified business expense, if it is something that typically your accountant does count as a business expense, then it can be spent. This is supposed to be spent on your business. But what you really need to focus on is if you are seeking forgiveness. And if you are seeking forgiveness, there are certain ways that the money must be spent, specifically that, what is it? I think 60% of it has to be on payroll itself. So you can't spend 60% on new studio equipment and travel and costuming and all this other sort of stuff. And now only 40% was dedicated to literally paying yourself, and then expect forgiveness. There's going to be some huge hurdles there based on how you spend the money. And I would expect to have meticulous documentation to substantiate those expenses, because lots of people have been audited from that first time around for misspending the money.
And then when you apply, if you do apply for forgiveness later on, is it an all or nothing kind of thing, or will they forgive us? Would they forgive a certain amount of it if you, do you know what I mean? Like, is it one of those things that's like they forgive the whole loan, or is it like, well, we might be able to forgive 10,000 out of the, 20,000?
Such a good question. And I don't know for sure the answer, but I think it's all or nothing. I think that, you want to show what you spent the money on, and it has to be at least 60% on payroll, on what you paid yourself. And then the other qualified expenses are like utilities, business rent, if you have an office or a studio, or however you account for your business, those kind of business expenses. If you write off a piece of your rent for because it's your office or your studio, or if you have a separate space, however you account for that. But Shay is totally right. Keep records, because you don't want to do this whole thing based on thinking that you're going to get it forgiven and then not. Right?
That'd be rough.
But having said that, they want this money to go to people. You do need to keep records, but they're not going to be looking for any way to not forgive you. As long as you do it properly, that's what they want to do.
In terms of paying it back, like with a personal loan, if you go to the bank, sometimes depending on what the amount is, they'll charge you a penalty if you pay it back early, or it's not like a fixed rate of interest. Is there any interest on this loan? Is there any are there any rules around when you can pay it back? Like, God willing, money falls out of the sky if I get this PPP and it's like, oh, I can pay this whole thing back in 6 months. Are they going to charge me a penalty if I can pay it back?
No, there is interest. It's nominal interest. It's not a lot. If you didn't qualify for forgiveness, they charge you the interest. I forget the rate, but it's very low. And interest rates in general are very low right now anyway. You don't have to pay it back for, I forget the exact period of time, but it's a while before they even start thinking about asking you to pay it back. And like I said, they want to give you this money and not have you pay it back. That's what the program is designed to do. All the guidelines are there so people don't, commit fraud and rip it off.
How do you know if it's going to be forgiven? Are you notified? Is this something that's part of the application process? Like, what's the...
So there's 2 steps, right? So
Sure.
Right now, what we're talking about for the March 31st deadline is you actually applying for the loan itself, being approved for the loan, and then receiving the loan.
Yeah.
The second portion of that will come later, because you have to spend this amount, I want to say, in like 8 to 24 weeks. So it's also not like you can just like drag this money out forever. They are expecting you to spend the money within a specific time period. Once that time period elapses, now the window opens up for you to now take the second step to file for this forgiveness, where they will be looking for you to substantiate whether or not you qualify for the forgiveness.
You know, as long as you spend it in the ways that it's intended to be spent, which is really just replacing the income that you lost. You know, that I wouldn't be afraid of applying for it because you're afraid of having to pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which isn't to say you can just go and buy a new car with it or whatever. You know, you got, but it's designed to work for you, not for them to make money on it.
Do you have to be an American resident to get it, to apply?
I was under the impression that you had to either be a citizen or a legal resident.
It's one of the two. Don't necessarily have to be a citizen, but at minimum, you must be a legal resident.
Is it a good idea to get this loan if your income is inconsistent? Because you know how like songwriters, we might get like a lump sum of money and then you don't get that same. It's definitely very like your year is never.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever had
to be spent within a small amount of time. It's like, well, what if we actually need to ration it out over the course of like 4 months?
Then unemployment might be better, huh?
Yeah, I think that's once again weighing your situation. So I think that due to the cyclical nature of the music industry and payment structures, it will probably be easier for a lot of creatives to qualify, showing that difference in income in that quarter period that Adam and I talked about, where you could have, to your point, made $40,000-$50,000 in lump sum in 2019, because that's just, you know, when your SAG check hit or when your royalties from something hit. And then in 2020, there was nothing to speak of. So boom, you've hit that threshold and now you can figure that payment out. And so I think this is where you're working with an accountant or you're working with a business manager, somebody on your team, where if you know that you need this money to last, the rule here is that the money must be spent on payroll within 60% of it on payroll within a set period of time. That's going to be up to you as an individual once you are paid of how you spend your paycheck. So that might be something that you work with your team on how much your pay is during that period in which you've received that PPP loan, so that once you have received that income as the individual, that you can now on your own accord outside of your business make it stretch for however long you need it to.
Can you apply for more than one?
Ooh, that's a great question. So here's the thing. In order to apply for the second draw, you have to apply for the first one and exhaust all of the funds from the first draw. So that's the key there. And so when we're talking about this March 31st deadline, the March 31st deadline is for that first draw, because if you are a mixed earner or you're falling in the music community, you probably didn't qualify the first time around, or you didn't have the money because they were looking at net and not gross that first time around. So this March 31st date is for you to apply for the first draw. You can apply for a second draw once you exhaust all of the funds in the time period for the allotted purposes in that first draw. Then you can apply for the second draw.
Do you have to submit all of the paperwork for the spending of the first one before you get a second one?
I don't think so, but
what I mean is, it's like in order to qualify for the second one, you'd have to have spent the first one. But does that mean you?
No, because what you're talking about is the forgiveness piece.
Okay.
The forgiveness piece is separate from the getting the loan piece.
Got it.
You know, in technical terms, like not in your head. In your head, it's like, I'm getting this and I'm thinking I'm going to use it this way and I'm going to get forgiven. But you know, so your application to forgiveness on the first loan is a separate thing from your application for the second loan, and then your forgiveness piece on the second loan. Hey,
I don't feel totally overwhelmed.
I literally was just thinking the same thing. I was like, okay.
This feels good.
It's intimidating. You know what I mean? I think when you go from like having so many people run your stuff to like people being like, I'm not running your stuff, you can't afford me anymore.
but also go from literally having no money and not knowing how to spend lump sums of money because you're so used to not having it. Yep. And or getting it in a large amount and then running through it. I have friends who do very well in their field, in their line of work. And a friend of mine is a very successful stylist and an author, and she got approved, I think, for like $100,000 for an SBA loan. I wouldn't even know what to do with that. I would be afraid to spend that. Like $15,000 to $20,000 is like, all right, cool. I kind of know where some of this could go towards rent. Some of this could go towards other life things, work things, fine. But I would be so afraid if it was even more than that. I wouldn't even know how to spend that. So in terms of figuring out how to spend that, do you enlist an accountant or someone else to kind of help you out? Do they offer any of that kind of support in any of the I guess companies, the small fish that are offering to help you? I guess we have to do our own research on that.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Number one, the SBA actually has really robust resources. Like, I know that it's not a common thing to go to a government website, but SBA.gov has a wealth of resources. They even have a program called SCORE, which is like a business mentorship program. And they have people in all different fields of entrepreneurship where they help small business owners manage their business or learn different things or receive mentorship in their business. So I would definitely say, number one, go to SBA.gov and look at the resources that they have, because they have a lot out there. I think the second thing is, to your point about the money, just because you qualify for a certain amount does not mean that you have to accept all of the money. So if they approve you for 100, you're like, ooh, that's cool, but I only need 20. You can only accept that 20 as well. I don't want you to think that you have to take all of the money that they approve you for.
Also, there's another website that SONA has been involved with putting together along with MAC, which is mixedearners.org. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good information on there, not just about PPP. There's a, if you look on the website, you'll find a tab for Paycheck Protection Program, but it's just a really good resource for people who are mixed earners, because I think a lot of people, a lot of us artists just are, mm-hmm. even if all you do is your creative work for money, but you're getting wages from SAG, like you were saying, Tiffany, or AFTRA, mm-hmm. and you're getting producing money and you're getting royalties, and so that's a really good resource, is mixedearners.org.
I have one more question about like how to sort through this if you don't have an accountant or you don't have a team, because I know a lot of people who are self-managed who most definitely do not have accountants at their disposal or the resources or relationships for that. So is this something that is there something else that people who don't have that can do?
I would suggest two things. I would suggest the VITA program, and that's a volunteer income tax assistance. And so annually they run VITA programs across the country. So if you probably just Google like VITA Chicago, VITA Atlanta, whatever it is, you can probably pull up the information and resources to get connected with the volunteer income tax assistance program that is nearest you. And so those are people who have been trained in the latest tax code and things of that sort to help you sort them through, because, right, like the vast majority of the things that you need in order to apply for this are getting your financial documents in place. And so that program can provide you some assistance. If we're talking about just kind of the back end and getting your business together, where you're saying, hey, am I an LLC? Am I an S Corp? But I don't know what I am. What's my legal entity, things of that sort. There are also volunteer lawyers for the arts in almost every city as well. And so these are lawyers who are familiar with working with creative professionals across the span of whether you are a songwriter, a producer, a visual artist, graphic designers, photographers. I think when we're talking about the music industry, and of course for Sona, we are representing songwriters. However, in the 100%ers, you're representing songwriters, but there's so many people in the music industry that play a part in getting us everything, right? Our photographers and our graphic designers make our album art. We have our engineers, we have our sound engineers who do our live shows. And so working with an organization like Volunteer Lawyer for the Arts, they will help you on the legal side, get the foundational things of your business together. If you don't have a team and you don't have resources, and a lot of times these things are either pro bono or what they call low bono, where it is extremely discounted on the cost that you would normally pay to an attorney.
Dang, well, I feel like we definitely hit the nail on the head. I think we got answered everything that we were trying to answer. Are there any more questions that you have, BK?
No, that gave me everything I needed. I'm on SBA.gov right now looking at more that she mentioned. Shay gave me the cheat code. I'm okay, like
I said, what? Yes. Well, I really appreciate you, Shay and Adam, for
thank you so much.
Breaking it down and keeping it simple
and getting the fear out of here for real. Because I think that's the one thing that holds most of us back is really the fear of not knowing enough and not having enough experience and wherewithal to take on, a loan, and that really just like shines a light on all the responsibilities that we try to shy away from as creatives. So it's
I think that creatives we've never really been included in the like unemployment, government assistance. So I think like I remember when I got approved for unemployment, I was like, what?
Really?
Right. Yeah, like, yeah, me, you're like,
I've been unemployed. I've actually been unemployed the whole time. Technically.
What do you mean? Right. Yeah, so I definitely think that it's just like so many creatives are just like kind of creeping out like, wait, we can do that? Yeah, like,
that's something that Sona, we along with Mac, we and I wasn't directly involved in this myself, but we had a whole team that worked really hard to get self-employed people included in all of these programs.
So good.
And we like you said, we're all kind of used to kind of just being on the outside of the mainstream. It's like all those people, that world is what they do, and we do much cooler stuff, but that's one of the things Sona has done, and I know you're doing it too, Tiffany, with the 100%ers, is getting involved and getting a seat at the table and letting them know we're here and that we, have needs and that we contribute to their world too.
It all ties in, right? Because if we're talking about unemployment and things like that, this is going to directly tie into when we're talking about royalty rates and streaming rates and bringing things up to market value. And so now we have a scenario right now where mixed earners and creatives are a part of this unemployment conversation. So now we can literally have the data to say the average creative only got X amount in unemployment, or they only netted this much in 2019 and 2020, even if they were full-time employed in the music industry. And this is why we need to raise the royalty rates to market standard, because the music industry is a profession, just like being a teacher, being a lawyer, being a doctor, being a dentist. This is a profession, and we deserve to be able to make a living doing our profession. And so it's having all of these things aligned, and these are all baby steps. And so getting this mixed earner and getting solopreneurs involved in the PPP legislation is just a huge move forward for the industry.
Just send a big shout out to Sona and Paul and Michelle Lewis and all the heavy hitters who have been making sure that we have been included in all of these things. I've definitely been able to like listen in on some of those conversations. I usually don't know what anyone is talking about. Like I'm like talking to Michelle, like, what does that mean? There's so many things, but I will say like from getting the opportunity to be in the room, like I was blown away to see how many people are actually fighting for us. Like I was like, wow, like there are so many people like over here and over there and over there and over there that are like, yo, we deserve better. this is what we need. We're unemployed too.
Yeah.
We're in a pandemic too.
Yeah.
And so to see so many people involved in making sure that we're okay in this season is incredible. So I just want to send my love to you guys and say thank you, because I definitely partook in that unemployment. Cheers. So cheers to y'all.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Guys.
Bridget, I'll see you, Adam and Tiffany, soon.
We appreciate
Bridget,
it.
lovely to meet you, and
Likewise.
thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. No, this is
having you involved. It's your generation that it really, that like, we want you to be able to have a profession, like Shay said, like it's a profession.
We're all fighting for the community. We all need each other. And I think it's really important that, you know, we support each other, because community is literally the only way that we change this, is by lifting each other up and supporting each other. I appreciate you guys. Bridget, I love you. Adam, thank you so much for all the information.
To the next one.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
All right, guys. That's a wrap, I guess.